The opinions expressed in this show are the views of the host and not necessarily that of WTRW, 94.3 The Talker, or the Bold Gold Media Group.
The following presentation is brought to you by the host of the program, who is solely responsible for its content.
Welcome to TecBridge Radio. TecBridge is a regional organization focused on growing entrepreneurship, innovation, and the knowledge economy in northeastern Pennsylvania. TecBridge asks us, why not us? Why not here? And why not now? You can reach us at techbridgepa.org. I'm Marty Wolf, your host for TecBridge Radio. This edition of the show is brought to you by Net Credit Union. They are changing lives by helping folks raise their credit scores. To learn more, you can reach them at netcreditunion.com. That's netcreditunion.com. You can bank on net. My special guest in the studio with me today is Joseph Sinclair, and he is the founder of a company called Solid Dynamics. Hi, Joseph. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Glad to be here, Marty.
I call you Joseph, Joe, Mr. Sinclair. What should it be?
Joe's fine.
Joe's fine?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, because I have respect for your work. So what you
well,
accomplished.
I appreciate that.
You know? Okay, so your company is Solid Dynamics. So let's start at, I guess, the 30,000 feet level, foot level, and tell me about Solid Dynamics.
Sure. So I started Solid Dynamics in college. Right after being rejected from a job interview, actually. So I thought, if I can't do it for somebody else, why not do it for myself?
Okay.
And the idea with it was I was in engineering school at Penn State, Maine, and a lot of students always wanted to feel their work in their hands that they designed on the computers. And one easy way to do that is to fabricate that part with a 3D printer. And I looked around for my own personal project that I was working on, and I saw that no businesses actually had that available in the area. So I said, well, I'm surrounded by, 10,000 or 20,000 other engineering students who need this same, business as I do for this type of work. And so I said, why not start for myself? And that's kind of how things came together with Solid Dynamics.
Yeah, we're talking about that, is that you had somebody said no to you, and that inspired you to do something else.
Exactly.
I guess the entrepreneur lesson is rejection isn't necessarily a good thing, but you found a need. Sure. Okay, so this idea of additive manufacturing, I would assume that a lot of us know what that means. Some people call it 3D printing. Give me the description of additive manufacturing, because that's what you're primarily about, correct?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. So a good analogy for describing additive manufacturing is imagine basically a robotic hot glue gun. So if you were to take a glue gun and you squirt a little glue on the table and you move it around while you're squirting it, you'll realize that you can build a 2D shape or 3D shape, and then you can keep squirting, more glue on top of that initial shape and build up a 3D structure. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty good way to think about 3D printing, where the technical name for that is additive manufacturing. But it started probably I believe it was in the mid-'80s, where the first patents and companies came out with 3D printing technology. And originally it was used for like prototypes and mocking up parts for various companies. Yeah. But since then, it's actually evolved into end-use markets, where they're actually fabricating or printing components for, cars now, planes, really anything you can think of.
Body parts.
Yeah, body parts even. Yeah, I know. There's a lot of, I know. One day it's just going to be like, select a replacement. But there's definitely a lot of stuff going on with it in the biomedical field.
Yeah, I wonder why it, again, I can't, I know it's been around for a while, and actually the first iteration of it kind of fell flat on its face initially. It's kind of like never launched.
No.
I sometimes maybe you have an answer. Maybe you can help me think about this, because why? I mean, it seemed, especially in industry, instead of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially to fabricate a part, you would think that would have been a big use. Well, why do you think it didn't take off initially?
I would say this. It all comes down to the visionary of the person who comes up with the technology.
Interesting.
Right? Because if they don't have the grandiose vision of applying it to wherever it can be applied, you kind of lose the potential of the technology. And that's no knock towards the original creators of the technology, but really they just viewed it simply as a way to prototype things faster.
They just saw it in a limited vision of it.
Exactly. They said, 3D printing is going to be this great prototyping technology, and then they just kind of ended the sentence there.
Yeah, because I had clients that's involved in it, and everybody said back then, well, it'll never launch. You'll never be able to mass produce things. It'll never have a place in industry. I guess that's different now. I see your title is a Chief Technical Officer. So you mentioned that you're in school, you're engineering, you were at Penn State. So talk to me about your role as Chief Technical Officer. What does that mean?
So a big part of additive manufacturing, 3D printing right now is, as you said, things didn't really take off till recently. And it wasn't till about 2010 where things really started to take off. I mean, the technology had been around, 30 years or up until then. And so a big part of that is now that the technology is taking off in kind of an exponential manner, you have to keep up with it, right? It's just like if you bought a computer in 1985, right? It probably cost you a pretty penny and it wasn't super great performance-wise, but you could do things that you couldn't do otherwise. Right. Well, then 5 years from that, the computers then, crushed those computers. And now we're here where every single day you can buy a better and better computer.
Yeah.
And 3D printing has really fallen into that same category with an explosion of innovation recently. And, being the chief technical officer, you have to keep up with that. And you want to, like I said, I talked about vision. You have to keep up with the vision of, leading it into the future, not so much focusing on the here and now. Yeah. But that's really kind of my key goal is, make sure that the vision is alive and well, and the vision will guide us into the future.
You mentioned in your good description of additive manufacturing. I like that. The whole glue idea. That's really good. I can visualize that, and I've seen it, so I think that's a great description. One of the, at least what the perceived, it was a real drawback, was just the speed.
Sure.
Right? Am I right? I mean, okay, so if I want to make this part, it takes me, 2 hours to make this tiny little part. Yes. And then it's still not finished. I have to do parts. I have to knock off the burrs or do whatever I have to do. So how are we addressing that speed idea, the industry or at your company?
Sure. So as an industry, speed has always obviously been to pick at.
Yeah.
The problem with speed is that it doesn't, with these particular processes for 3D printing, it doesn't scale super well. So, for instance, a couple companies have figured out ways to greatly speed up the process, but then they added an additional post-sintering or curing process that takes just as much time, to make the part. So they can fabricate it, very quickly initially off the machine, but then right off the machine, you can't use it. You have to
2 or 3 other stages to make it ready to go.
Yeah. So that's always been a big fluctuation, but how we're really approaching that problem at Solid Dynamics is, we're attacking it from the service bureau perspective. And from a service bureau provider's mindset, when we think about speed, we think about not so much speeding up a single tool, but why not having multiple tools, right?
Okay.
Because if you need to produce 2 parts and you have one part running on one machine, why not have a second machine? And so this is kind of where the company originally found its footing. Is we ended up, I believe it was mid-2015, we had about 30 3D printers and 10 personnel operating that equipment. But this is kind of where the software idea came out of that we were at the TecBridge business plan competition for. And that was the idea of, instead of having people trying to babysit and watch these 3D printers to make sure that things go accordingly, right? So we can get that volume. We decided that, hey, what if we could just have one operator run 30 machines? Right now, we're talking about throughput. So when we talk about speed, it's, okay, how fast is that one machine going? But when we think about throughput, it's how many components can you really make in a set period of time? Yeah. And a big part of that is, how many machines do you have, and how many operators and overhead do you need to run those machines?
You know what, I'm sitting there thinking, so you have to be creative, and you need a base education. Again, we'll mention you're at Penn State and you got a special degree, or you're getting a special degree at Penn State. Talk to me about that a little bit more, because that's an interesting degree. And
so, again, trying to keep up with the technology, understand what's going on in the industry, you have to continue to educate yourself. Try and, do your best to be humble and not think that you know everything. So I got back involved with acquiring a degree in Master's in Engineering for additive manufacturing and design. And that's actually, this is the first time they're going through the program, so I was lucky enough, to get in on the ground floor as they were building it out. and really understand, how does the academic world perceive what's going on in industry. But the funny thing is, I've only been in industry for 4 or 5 years now, and I'm realizing there's a serious disconnect between academia and industry when it comes to, getting parts out the door. So it's interesting to have both perspectives and see things from the other side.
That's the beauty of staying in the game and learning all the time. So you have that, I'll use the word solid background from an educational standpoint.
Excellent pun.
Yeah, there you go. So my guest is Joseph Sinclair. He is the founder. The company is called Solid Dynamics. Where do you actually office now?
Sure. So we have 2 offices, one in State College, Pennsylvania. That's originally where we're from. And then we have our newest office in East Stroudsburg University.
Where is the actual printers located? We don't want to give out, any secrets like people break in to steal all your technology or anything. But where are you physically doing the work? Yeah.
So we actually have we're primarily doing the work in East Stroudsburg now. In State College, we do some still, but that's more kind of on the design side, specifically for clients.
So you're in, where'd you just say, East Stroudsburg?
East Stroudsburg, yeah.
Okay, do you have a relationship with anybody up there, universities, incubators, anything like that going on up there?
So
talk to me about that.
We're involved with the East Stroudsburg Tech Accelerator, and that's housed in their incubator center. And we heavily got involved with them initially with some other companies that were working in the area. And we realized that it was a great fit for us. The university is becoming more and more prominent in the additive manufacturing space. So it was a natural fit for us. And we realized that there's a plethora of work in the area for what we need. There's actually a significant manufacturing base in the Stroudsburg location, as well as the rest of Northeast Pennsylvania.
Okay, well, that's kind of a setup for you have a relationship with a company called Imperial Machine and Tool.
Sure.
Which is close to East Stroudsburg.
Yes.
I think it's Columbia. Is that what the town where Imperial is?
So Columbia, New Jersey. A population of 200 or something like that.
And 100 of those are cows.
Yes,
I think,
exactly.
Our mutual good friend Chris Jost is there.
Yes.
Talk to me about that relationship. You've done a good job of explaining to me, your education and why you got into this, and you're starting to tell us the story of, this is a needed product. But how did that start with Chris and Imperial? Where did that start?
Sure.
And why did it start?
So I was working at the Applied Research Laboratories at the Sim3D facility in State College, Pennsylvania. It's basically it's funded primarily by DARPA and the Department of Defense for a lot of interesting projects. And I was working there in their 3D printing division. And while I was working there, they did tours of other DoD personnel and contractors and things like that. And at the time, I had always been kind of like a rebellious spirit. I didn't necessarily agree with where the vision was for additive manufacturing. And so I was working, on my own, in my own company and things like that. And one day, Chris and the Imperial gang walked through, and I got to talk with them. And so we set up a secondary meeting, and we started to discuss the problems that they were seeing on kind of the production side of additive manufacturing, as well as the problems I was seeing on the prototyping side. And so we realized that, creating solutions for these problems was just a natural fit for both of us. And so that kind of kicked things off, and, we've been working together ever since.
You can't get much better than Imperial Machine and Tool.
No, you can't.
And Chris and Christian there, they are great guys and brilliant business people, so you're lucky to be connected to them. So my guest is Joseph Sinclair. He is the founder of a company called Solid Dynamics. You can look them up. They got a great website. Joe, we need to take a short break, so we're going to come back and continue this discussion. So you are listening to TecBridge Radio on 94.3 FM The Talker. I'm your host, Marty Wolf. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Clarence Baltricitis, CEO of Net Credit Union. And do you happen to know what the most important number that you should be monitoring is?
It's definitely my weight.
No, it's not your weight.
My blood pressure?
It's your credit score. Come on into the credit union and receive a free credit score analysis by our credit score team.
I'm busy. I don't have time.
It only takes a few minutes, and you can schedule an appointment at your own convenience.
I guess I don't have time to waste money.
Your time is important to us. When you think of a credit union, you can bank on Net.
There's so much more you get when you bank on Net. Net Credit Union. Bank on Net.
Welcome back to TecBridge Radio. I'm your host, Marty Wolf. We are 94.3 FM The Talker. My special guest, I'm having a lot of fun talking to Joe Sinclair. Joe is the founder of a company called Solid Dynamics, talking about 3D printing and additive manufacturing and those kinds of things. You're excited about the future of all of that. Obviously, you're all fired up. You're leaning forward and everything. So this is good. So you won the business plan competition. Sure. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So my question is, why do you think the judges voted for you? What was the magic formula? Why do you think that happened? Talk to me.
Well, I would say probably the secret sauce, if there is any, was one, showcasing kind of a long track record of, pursuing, entrepreneurial endeavors.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it's seizing on kind of intellectual property very early on. Because in additive manufacturing and 3D printing, that's huge right now. Is intellectual property is driving that market, just as it drives many other markets.
Yeah.
And all the serious players have serious intellectual property, and I think that shows how much time and commitment it takes to pursue that. We originally filed for intellectual property on the software we were building in 2015, or late 2014 it was. And, it took us 3.5 years and quite a pretty penny for that to come to fruition and turn into an actual patent.
Yeah.
So I think that was a big kind of positive for us, especially in the business plan competition.
It takes a lot of discipline to stay on the game for 3.5 years.
Certainly shows commitment. I would say that much.
Yeah. Well, and that's what it takes to get the patents. But let me throw you a curveball.
Sure.
You're a smart guy. You can handle this.
Hit me.
So now I don't know if you've been approved of your patent or not, but when you do get approved, this is a bad question. You can handle it. Does it really matter? Why does that matter?
Sure.
Talk to me about that. You're an entrepreneur, so tell me.
Exactly. So we actually were approved in March of this year. So we received our first patent and filed follow-up intellectual property to that. But what does it really mean? So in the current day and age, a whole lot of companies don't go after each other if they have competing intellectual property.
Got it. Okay.
Instead, what they will do is try and roll what you're doing into what they're doing and create partnerships and licensing agreements. Because, in the end, if you're, trying to fight somebody in the court, it's the lawyers who win. Right? Apple and Sony, I think, went at it over some, iPhone or, Galaxy, whatever, little feature. And, they fought for, I think it was like a decade back and forth. So, I mean,
great business lesson, Joe. Great business lesson. So you own that. So potentially that provides us partnership opportunities, strategic relationships.
Yeah.
Don't get stuck in the courts. Let's make some money.
Exactly. Bottom line.
Bottom line. Great answer. While you were talking about Penn State earlier and your beginnings, I guess, down at Penn State, I like to mention somebody who I know, Tim Simpson, down there.
Sure. Great guy.
Great guy, doing some great work, really leading the nation, right?
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. And he's definitely a visionary in additive manufacturing, 3D printing, and he absolutely understands constantly where it's going, what are the latest innovations in technology, and being as close to him as possible is a very good thing if you're trying to keep up.
And let me give him a special compliment. He is a good guy.
No, he is.
Tim is a smart dude, but a great guy. We mentioned Imperial Machine and Tool, and let's talk about maybe some other mentors or coaches or supporters over the years that you've had. Obviously, a couple of them are at Imperial.
Yes, yeah. I would say, in terms of mentorship, for me in my life so far, Chris Jost has been an excellent mentor. He showed me kind of the underside of how things actually work and how you make the donuts, but also at the same time as, how do you keep that vision alive of where you're going, where do you want the company to end up? Yeah. And that's been excellent. And as well as his son, Christian. Christian, he's more of a peer to me.
And he's more the main guy in the 3D, is he not? In the additive manufacturing, he's kind of leading that charge, right?
At Imperial, yes. Yeah, definitely.
Great guys, unbelievable business they have there, and you are lucky to have them. As they are lucky to have you, and I think that's a great relationship. Tell me more about that relationship. You mentioned a government entity earlier.
Sure.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Absolutely. So. Originally, I devised the intellectual property for the software that we presented in the business plan competition, which basically makes 3D printer self-aware. So if if anybody is listening who is involved in manufacturing, you'll know that during the manufacturing processes, you usually have to pay pretty close attention to the machines or robots you tell to make something. Yeah. Because they often make mistakes if they're not maintained properly, or an operator screws something up. So we actually 3D printing didn't have any smart technology that actually allowed the 3D printer to, verify that it was doing what it was supposed to. And so at Solid Dynamics, I initially developed the intellectual property for this concept to make the 3D printer self-aware or smart, so it actually makes sure it's doing what it's supposed to. And so I described this technology to Imperial Machine and Tool because they were having similar problems with their very expensive metal 3D printers. Yeah. And so they realized, holy crap, this could definitely impact us significantly, and definitely in a production environment. And so that's kind of where that relationship came to fruition. And since then, we've actually created a joint entity now called Solid Innovations, where we're actually pursuing DoD initiatives with this technology. And so we've actually already received our first contract with the Department of Defense we're working on now. We already have additional ones queued up for next year, so we're very excited about that. And the idea on the DoD front is DoD is very big into decentralized manufacturing, right? Imagine if $100,000 piece of equipment can't work without a $5 knob. You obviously want to make sure that you can get that $5 knob as quickly as possible. And so 3D printing is an excellent application for them. And so that's primarily where our focus lies right now. Yeah. In addition to the practical experience and those strategic relationships and your educational background, how the hell do you stay up with this? I mean, really? I mean, talk to me about that. I mean, you have to be continuously curious, and studying, and so how do you do that? Yeah, so a big thing I would say is remaining humble, trying not to think that everything that's going on in the industry, and this is definitely something that everybody who's at the forefront struggles with, right? Because you think that your stuff is the latest and greatest, when in reality, somebody else in the world is working just as hard or just as fast as you. So even every morning I get up, first thing I do in the morning is scroll through my LinkedIn feed and see what's happening in the industry. And every morning I have a heart attack because I'm thinking, oh my God, all my competitors are right there alongside me. I'm like, I got to get up and work twice as hard, tonight. I can't sleep. Why did I sleep? No, exactly. I'm like, I know, I just wasted 8 hours, so that's probably, a big thing is just, trying to stay humble and curious and constantly checking in with guys on the academic side like Tim Simpson, who are there to, tell you everything that's going on. Also making sure that you're at the forefront on the private sector side and keeping up with the industry and new applications. I mean, that's a huge part of staying up with advancing technology. Yeah, and again, we mentioned there's huge applications in defense and government and healthcare. There's huge opportunities, but who's doing what where? In addition to the United States, who's kind of has a leadership position in this worldwide? So it's a pretty, a niche industry right now. Actually, if you had probably about $10 billion, I know that sounds like a lot of money, but you could buy every 3D printing company. Really? I mean, that sounds like I got my checkbook with me. Let's talk about a deal. No, but, so you could buy everything. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, but the leaders that sounds like a big number, but in reality, the overall manufacturing in the United States, we're talking $1 trillion plus. Yeah. So we're talking less than maybe 1% of manufacturing in general. But the leaders so far have been places like Israel and also Germany. Interesting. Those two locations have driven a lot of the original intellectual property. But the United States also has been a primary leader in the field since the beginning. Yeah, because there's two things, or there's more, but I see as there's the whole intellectual property, the whole software, brains part of it, if you will, and then there's the actual manufacturing of this equipment. And use. Yeah, and use. But I mean, even to manufacture, somebody could design something, you have to manufacture the actual printer. And so there's many different parts. Israel, interesting.
when you're going over Israel to find out what's going on.
Yeah, I know. Hopefully soon. One of these strategics comes along.
What specific industries? I think you were talking about. What industries are you in other than what we talked about, the Department of Defense and stuff like that?
Sure. So a big side of it is kind of like the prototyping side is making people's ideas reality.
Sure.
Right? A lot of people have new ideas for inventions or whatever it may be, and they want to see those brought to life so they can show potential investors or sell them, right away. And so that's a big initial kind of push we had. But since then, we've got involved in kind of the mass production side of additive manufacturing. And that's really my primary effort right now.
Customization in mass production, though. Also.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Exactly.
So, it could be a watch part or case or something that could be customized.
Yep.
Is that an application that you would look at in additive manufacturing?
Absolutely. So a good way to think about it is, everybody's foot or sole is different. Right?
Yeah.
Well, there's no manufacturing technology other than 3D printing that can allow you to create unique one-offs in a mass production sort of environment.
Exactly.
And so that, 3D printing is excellent for those types of custom applications.
Okay, I didn't ask you this question. I did mention your company, but give me your website so make sure people can follow you wherever they want.
So our website is www.soliddynamics.net.
.net.
.net, yeah.
Okay,
yep.
all right.
Australia has .com.
Okay.
I can't get it. I've been trying for years.
You'll continue to work on that, though. So how does this relate to greater northeastern and central Pennsylvania? You mentioned earlier that there's customers here for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So talk to me about that. Is there a huge opportunity for you right here within 100 miles, as an example?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Absolutely. And, an interesting part is traditional manufacturing. When I say traditional, I'm talking about, injection molding facilities, machining service bureaus or machine shops. They think that 3D printing is going to contend with their business directly. The reality is, though, is that it's more of a capability adder than anything else. And the ability to include kind of 3D printing in your traditional manufacturing facility is crucial. Here's a good example. Imagine making custom fixture and tooling on a 3D printer automatically rather than having an operator have to work on that.
Automatically is an important word there.
Yes, yeah. Unattended. That's huge.
Unattended. That's great. It's part of, not replacing.
Yeah.
So if you're in any kind of manufacturing injecting, matter of fact, the show that Don Webster did last week, they talked about a company that in fact is using additive manufacturing and 3D printing. So let's see here. So let's talk about entrepreneurship. We're kind of winding down. I want to make sure I get this in. Obviously, you're an entrepreneur. Obviously, you got told no by someone in the early stages, and you said, well, okay, I'll show you. Yeah. So away you went. So talk to me about the whole idea of entrepreneurship. What's been the biggest challenges with that? What's most fun? Talk to me about that.
I think the biggest challenge with entrepreneurship so far is understanding that bureaucracy is necessary. Especially for me, because I've always been somebody who tries to be as fluid as possible and move quickly when I need to move, to seize on business opportunities. Yeah. But at the end of the day, is in order to have a full blown business, you need that everyday bureaucracy that keeps things running.
I'm uncomfortable with that word, though. Let's call it organization.
Organization. That's fine by me.
I can't stand that word bureaucracy.
Yeah.
So let's think about organization or focus or support. How's that for a better word?
Sure.
Is that okay? Are we okay with that?
Yeah, you need the everyday support.
Okay. So my special guest has been Joseph Sinclair. Give me your website again, Joe.
It's www.soliddynamics.net.
Okay, so you said that part of it. That's kind of a challenge. What's been fun?
Sure. I think what's been fun is having the opportunity to stay on the leading edge. And, being there.
There's
on
heart
the
attacks in the morning.
No, there are.
Yeah,
exactly.
But once you get over that, you meditate a little bit, you calm down, you say, okay, let's go to work, right? So that's fun.
And people talk about kind of the romantic nature of the Wild West in the 1800s. And really being on the forefront of a technology is, just like the Wild West. Things are changing constantly. And if you're not keeping up, you're going to be left behind.
So you keep those energy drinks flowing, and you stay calm when you need to.
Yeah.
Give me a book that you just read. We're running out of time, but give me the title. It's a good book.
An Antidote to Chaos by Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
That, along with another book I'm currently reading, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, has been excellent in keeping things moving.
My guest has been Joseph Sinclair. Great discussion. So thank you to our sponsor, Net Credit Union. You can reach them at netcreditunion.com. I'm Marty Wolf, your host. Thanks for listening.
Hey guys, Joe Sinclair here with Solid Dynamics LLC. Just finished wrapping up our radio show on TecBridge Radio. A lot of cool discussions, and I just want to give a shout out to East Stroudsburg University and their Texcelerator program, as well as Tim Simpson from Penn State University, Chris Jost, as well as Christian Jost over at Imperial Machine and Tool, as well as my family, friends, and especially my girlfriend, Shawnee, for keeping me sane throughout the whole business plan competition, as well as being by my side, to correct me and keep me humble throughout the process. So thanks, guys, and take it easy.